The reality is that the economic bricks, hiring, inflation, how people feel, are piling up on the wrong side of the scale.
Oh, I think they're piling up on the right side, actually.
Wait, you want inflation in August ticking up to 4.3%, the highest since 21? Manufacturing activity shrank in August, 6 months running, unemployed workers exceeding job openings. If Biden had numbers like that, you'd be on Fox saying, what's going on?
All right, that was Trump's Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, and he was there trying to convince Americans that Trump's economy is not actually that bad. In fact, it's not even really Trump's economy, and that is one heck of a hot take. And this can be a really big problem for the Republicans as we head into the midterms. Anytime there is a bad economy, it reflects very poorly on the president. So now they're trying to separate Trump from the poor economy that he very much and very directly, I think, helped to create and deliberately helped to create. So first, let's hear how Lutnick is trying to justify these just very, very terrible economic indicators. Let's watch.
If Biden had numbers like that, you'd be on Fox saying, what's going on?
So the economy that Donald Trump owns starts at the end of this year. You can't get, well, wait.
January 20th,
you can't
day one.
Build factories and get permits and begin in an hour. You just can't. And the scale by which these companies are committed to building factories in America is unprecedented. So the jobs are coming, the factories are coming. We know the cavalry is coming. You know it. You can hear the thunder of the hooves coming.
All right, well, the point that he's trying to make might not actually be the worst point in the world, but that's a whole other conversation for another day. But it was actually contradicted by Lutnick himself just a few months ago when he posted this on X back in July. He said GDP just surged to 3% and the Trump economy has officially arrived. Biden's first quarter is behind us and growth is already accelerating. President Trump's tariff policies have drawn historic investments and opened up global markets for US businesses. Congratulations, America, 3% today, and we're just getting started. Okay.
I love that. It hasn't started yet, but except it started.
It started in July, but it not technically till the end of the year.
This is not Trump's economy. So that good stuff,
Yeah, it's a really interesting take. And like the Trump economy has resulted in inflation that's been rising now for its fourth consecutive month, I'm sorry. And it rose 0.4% in August, putting the annual inflation rate at 2.9%, which is the highest it has been since Trump was inaugurated in January. And also grocery and fuel prices, they shot higher in August after falling the month before. Food at home prices rose 0.6%. And that is the highest monthly jump in nearly 3 years. And gas prices climbed by 1.9% after falling 2.2% the month before. And the latest consumer price index provided further evidence that some costs from President Donald Trump's policies, such as sweeping immigration reform and steep tariffs, are slowly being passed along to consumers. And that's from economist Dean Baker, who's a co-founder of the Center for Economic and Policy Research. So on top of all of this, jobless claims are the highest that they have been in years. The unemployment rate has moved slightly higher in August, and new data on Thursday showed one of the biggest weekly increases in jobless claims seen in more than a year. So the first time filings for unemployment insurance, considered a proxy for layoffs, jumped by 27,000 to 263,000 for the week ending September 6th. That is the highest level seen since late October of 2021. But you guys, don't worry, because Howard Lutnick says the jobs, they're coming. They're coming just right around the time when Trump's
you can hear that cavalry.
You can hear them. So let's see what he had to say about the jobs that are incoming.
So now everybody knows their tariff, right? So now you're gonna see factories getting built in America at a scale that you have never seen before. Okay, more than $10 trillion of factory build coming. All right, and so there's huge amount of construction jobs. So I would say the first quarter of next year will be the best quarter of construction jobs this country's ever seen. And that's gonna roll all the way through 26. So I think you're gonna see GDP growth next year over 4%.
You do, 4%, 10 trillion over what period of time, Secretary?
Mr. Donald J. Trump, the President of the United States during his term.
Okay, I guess we're all construction workers now, or we're about to be. So in the meantime, real hourly earnings only gained 0.7% in August, and that is the lowest gain in over a year. So, people's money is just not going as far as it used to go. And, the point about, what was it? The sweeping immigration reforms and the steep tariffs and all of this compounding upon itself, nothing exists within a vacuum. And those are very much Trump's policies. So whatever is happening now is a direct result of the things that he has implemented since he has been in office. And one thing that's interesting about Trump is that he brags all the time about how much his administration has been able to get done in such little time, right? How long has he been in office? Not even a year yet, and he has transformed this country in ways that personally I'm not very happy about. So,
have you not seen the Rose Garden? I mean,
horrendous. Like it hurts my heart, Like
Right.
I'm already always fighting about people cutting down trees and paving over green. And I hate it. So anyway, Maz, let's go to you. What are your thoughts on all of this? And also talk a little bit about, in the past, this is a very predictable thing that we see happen is that, whatever the economy is doing, the people blame it on the president. Even though I think Howard Lutnick's earlier point that he was trying to make is that, there is a lag effect sometimes, right? One president will often have to clean up the economy of another president's policies, or one president will do something that will, maybe you won't feel the effects of it until later. But at the same time, what we're seeing is very, very troubling trends. And again, as I said, they are a direct and immediate response to the policies that Trump has implemented. And also, are you about to quit comedy and become a construction worker?
I can hear the cavalry coming. They're coming. These people, the whole administration works under the Roy Cohn theory of just lie until somebody starts believing it. And that's what they do. They just, twist and turn and change the goalposts. Let's not forget, before Donald Trump won the presidency in 2024, there was a moment when the stock market jumped up and he took credit. He goes, the stock market went up today because people know I'm gonna win the election. So when he wasn't president, he took credit for the economy getting better. And now that he's president, he doesn't want to take credit for the mess that he's made. I sometimes play this game, and I think we all should from time to time. I ask myself, what would have happened if Kamala had won, and where would we be right now? And where we'd be is we would have the January 6th criminals who stormed the Capitol would still be in prison. Donald Trump would be going through his trials right now. Our economy will be much better. All he had to do, this is how bad of a businessman he is. All he had to do was do nothing. Just don't do anything. Just work on lowering the prices, work on lowering inflation, but don't do this tariff thing. And this tariff thing is just, I mean, the whole reason they did it was to be able to say, look, we got money that's gonna come in, and therefore you can go ahead and give us our tax break, the billionaire tax break. And then the other thing that's very, very ironic is that this guy, he fired half of the government workforce. He deported everybody else who's working. He raised tariffs so companies don't know what to do. Can they hire, can they not hire? And then he's surprised when the job numbers aren't good. You got rid of all the people working. So what do you expect? And Howard Lutnick talking about all these construction jobs coming. I got news for you, Howard. All the people that were doing the construction work are not here anymore. They deported them. So maybe Donald Trump will send the National Guard in to build these new companies, these new factories, the same way they sent the National Guard to DC to pick up trash.
And I'm sure they'll be thrilled about that. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, and not to mention, when you look at the way that Trump is painting this and Lutnick is painting this, and they're looking at numbers and ignoring them. First they looked at them, then they fired the person who gave them those numbers. Now they're looking at the numbers and saying, those numbers aren't real. We have to wait and see the real numbers. And in fact, what you said is true, is that economies do lag. But there's nothing to indicate that this economy is turning because it's so haphazard. And look, I was in, I think, 24 states last election in 24, traveling around for this place and others, talking to voters, and all voters wanted to hear was that all they wanted to talk about was how high gas prices were and blame it on Biden, and how high it was, how high egg prices were and blame it on Biden. You know, I can't believe that you would blame egg prices directly on the president, but that's presidential politics, so I get it. None of that has changed, right? So what are you seeing right now? You're seeing the president send the military or threaten to send the military into cities and states around the country because the calculus right now is that crime is going to be the issue that they're going to be able to win on because this economy won't be ready for a 2026 election. That's the way I read it, sort of analyzing the politics of it. So I see all this energy going to policing and crime and being the party that's tough on crime when the president is not on the ballot, and he is a force when he's on the ballot. But even though the president is quote unquote on the ballot in the off-year election, he's not really on the ballot. And this president has proven that people don't come out unless he is on the ballot. He has a following and a very, very riled up, passionate group of people that support him in MAGA, but they don't come out for midterms. They're new to the game and they don't come out as much for midterms. At least that's what we saw last time. In order to get people out, in order to get independent voters, you have to say that crime is on the rise and we're the only people fighting it. And that's ignoring the economy. And the economy is what got them there. And you ignore it at your own peril when you're running for office. So I think it's a very fascinating, just stepping away from the ridiculousness of the cavalry. I think it's a fascinating political theater to watch how the administration is focusing only on crime now and saying, oh, this will get a little bit better later on. When in fact, the reason they're sitting there is because they were able to get people to vote for them because of the economy. And independent voters are coming away from that message right now. And they're the ones that care about the economy.
Absolutely, and it's good that you brought up the independent voters because they are the ones who oftentimes will swing elections one way or the other because, you know, Democrats are gonna vote Democrat, Republicans are gonna vote Republican. Even if they don't love Trump, they're still not gonna vote for a Democrat. But the independents, that is where you can kind of win some people over typically. I'm not saying people can't be won over from one side to the other, but typically you make a lot of progress with the independents, and they are not happy right now with the state of the economy or with a lot of Trump's policies. And I know we've talked about that on the show previously. But it is interesting because, you know, whenever this is a democracy and we have terms, we have major elections every 2 to 4 years, and what ends up happening inevitably, you know, whether this is by design or just, you know, by nature of the system that we did design, we're gonna have issues that are specific to drive voters to the polling booths. And, you know, Trump and Republicans, they really seem to have understood that immigration is something that brings their voters out to the polls, and also crime and policing people who they think are bad people, right? They want to feel protected, they want to feel safe, and Trump has told them, I will keep you safe and I will, you know, take care of all these immigrants who shouldn't be here in the first place. And also, by the way, those two issues are overlap because the immigrants are the criminals and you're welcome. I'm taking care of all of that for you. But we do know, as Michael, I think, mentioned, a lot of people voted for Trump in the last election because the egg prices were too high. They said as much, right? They said the gas is too high, the egg prices are too high, I can't afford things whenever I go to the grocery store. I'm feeling it personally in my own pocketbook, in my own wallet, and I don't like that. And also, I'm not making any more money than I was before. Also, finding a job is so much more difficult before. We have so many layoffs happening in so many different industries, right? It's not isolated in one particular industry that we can just study that. This is something that is coming very much from the top. And it's almost like a cultural issue that we're seeing because we are going through a transition as a culture. You know, we have AI that is threatening so many jobs. We have Doge that laid off so many people and did not create those new jobs that we kind of thought were gonna happen. So, you know, we're in for a world of change, and I think it will be volatile just because change is always a little bit volatile, even if you are as prepared for it as he can be. So, Maz, any final thoughts before we wrap?
Yeah, you both made a good point about this is a play for the midterms, and let's not forget that they're redistricting to win the midterms as well. They're saying we will tell you who the winner is going to be, because they know that their policies are horrible. Their policies are crap across the line, whether it's foreign policy, whether it's the economic policy. They have really poo-pooed on this country. And with that, I say happy weekend.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.